Welcome to the Kahler podcast. Today, we're going to take a little bit closer look at the Kahler Spyder, all of its different incarnations and what it is right now. How you doing, Gary?
Incarnations. What is that?
It's like a flower, only not a flower.
Oh, my God.
There have been 3 double-locking fulcrums that Kahler has made over the years, the Killer, the Spyder, and the Stealer. Do you recall if any one of them came first? Was there a first design, or
The Spyder right here was one of the very first designs that we come up, and we were talking to 4 different OEMs at the time. Well, they wanted to look meaty and heavy and all of that, whether they wanted to match it with what other people were making or not. So we did that. And then some of them wanted a little different feel to it, too.
We all know about the Daves. Dave Story, obviously, was your big cam guy.
Well, Dave's Story was very important to the cam. And
what about Petrolot?
Petrolot was a fulcrum guy.
So basically, you had a Dave for cams and a Dave for fulcrums.
I guess we could say that.
That sounds like a pretty good selection of Daves right there.
Well, it was, and they got a hell of a lot of experience.
I've been fortunate enough to talk to Dave Petrolot a number of times, and boy, what a smart guy. What inspired you to hire him?
Well, I hired him because he had some good ideas about things. I met him at a show, and I can't remember what booth he was at or who he was talking to, but we talked about doing some innovative things, and he joined me because of that.
Sometimes the Spyder and the Killer can get confused. People who don't know that the Spyder and the Killer are 2 completely different bridges.
No, they're almost 2 completely different pieces.
Right.
And the main reason was that the Killer was made for the so-called fender drive. The Spyder was made for the so-called Floyd drive. So you got the wide one and the one that's closer together.
Well, there's a great big difference in the materials used.
The Killer, we went overboard in spending way too much money on the substrates and the engineering and all that stuff. We actually discontinued that bridge very early on because it's too expensive. But this bridge here, a Spyder, is very functional, and it was made to go across all kinds of features and benefits to make that work for the fit, the form, and the function that people were looking for.
There are a lot of unique features to this bridge. Probably the biggest one is the knife edges on the stud.
Yeah, let me explain. It's very, very important that on this stud here, right here, this has 4 different positions that you can actually use the knife. So the knife is on the stud, and then the knife fits into a slot right here. And this little slotted area right here is replaceable. Got a screw right under there, and the way that works, that simply fits right into that groove. You can rotate this 4 times, or you can replace the other contact point in the drive.
Something that a lot of people will probably jump to is that if you rotate that stud even a quarter of a turn, well, that's going to completely change my height. No. But your threads are so fine that it really doesn't in any kind of way that is meaningful. I've done it, and I'm pretty picky, and I don't notice the difference.
I don't want to get too detailed here, but the fact is, sure, maybe there's 1 or 2 people out there who can tell the difference.
Right.
I don't know. But this is a feature, and if you don't damn well like it that way, leave it how it is and replace the groove.
With the replaceable inserts and with the studs, they're both made out of steel, correct?
Oh, of course, they're both steel.
Now, is either one hardened?
In the beginning, neither was hardened. And then later on, we did experiment with hardening the insert. And frankly, didn't make a heck of a lot of difference. The problem with hardening the knife edge on the bolt here is that makes it so vulnerable to the person who wants to pull it up way too far. It'd be too easy to chip. But these are so easily replaceable, these studs. So anytime anything would happen, or just get a new set, they're not that expensive.
The hardening tends to make steel brittle. What about some other unique design things, such as the arm module?
Okay, we got arm modules. We got all kinds of new innovative things on here that were invented in the middle 80s.
Right.
Going into the beginning. As far as the arm module is concerned, there's a number of different things that happen. This is the module we're talking about. This arm module is held in there by two fasteners. The reason we have this arm module is that this is just for a regular tremolo. The Auto-Latch arm module looks a little different than this one does. We have a tightener right here on the side. It's a clutch, so you can figure out if you want it to swing, you can do that, or you can tighten it up, and you can put it wherever you want it. We also have a depth adjuster right here that you can screw this arm down exactly how far you want it, and then bring this fastener here up to that. So you got both exactly how high you want it, plus how much clutching do you want. Is that it doesn't have a one universal spring here. Each one of these modules has its own little spring. And what that allows for you to do when you move this forward or rearward, that little spring is just simply separate from the other five. We think you get better springability there and a closer attachment to it. Now, this is the locker. We made a nice fat bolt in the back rather than a skinny shop. This is special machined, special milled piece of equipment. And it's got a slot in it for a quarter, or you can use the Allen wrench. And you can see we can unloosen this, and then you can move this back and forth with the thumb deal here. Right there's your opening right there. Stick it in there, and then move your thumb up to hold it, and with your other hand, screw that in. So you don't need to have a needle nose pliers and bend it and stick it in there with that and do this. This little thumb deal here. It also keeps that element from falling out and you losing it. Then the next thing would be important is the fine-tuning system. And it's got quite a bit of throw. You can see how much it has there. Because it has that individual spring, it isn't pulling down on the next one. Each saddle was a component by itself individually. And I might say that we had different people that had input on that. Well, just different guitar people, including Fender. What Fender also wanted, and a few other people wanted, the distance of this fulcrum drive to this armhole is going to determine how strong that tremolo is going to be. And therefore, even if that is only 10 thousandths further back, you'll find out that it has more leverage on this, and it's easier to tremolo. The closer it is to it, it doesn't have as much leverage. So it's a little stiffer. And so this is kind of in the middle, but that was all part of the engineering at that time to make it feel in the middle. This one here is a little bit more, I guess we could call, I don't know if you want to call it stiff or that, than let's say our newer ones are. Right. But it was purposely engineered that way because we wanted to make sure it stayed in tune better. And the reason it would stay in tune better is because it had a more positive springing. All earlier tremolos really didn't have that. It was a little more easy, let's put it that way.
I would like to, just from a player's point of view, say something about the I don't know, stiffness, shall we call it? I remember when these things first came out. In fact, the first time I ever saw one was on an HM Strat, just like that one hanging there. And I picked the thing up and it behaved differently. And I didn't really know what to make of it. It's obvious that it feels stiffer, but what nobody said was it's a lot more stable.
You see, a lot of people just relate that to springs.
Yes.
Only the springs make it. Well, engineers will tell you the further you come to that, you don't have as much leverage against those springs.
Yeah.
So as a result, it's going to be a little bit, but against, does it stay in tune better? And so what we were all striving for, we wanted to stay in tune as well as possible.
And it makes perfect sense, too, that if you move the lever, then it changes everything. I think it was Archimedes that said, give me a fulcrum and a lever long enough and I can move the world.
Was he a famous guitar player?
He was a famous...
well, what band he played with back then?
I think he played with Zeus and the Greek gods. At any rate, once I understood that it was a stability thing, then my approach to this particular bridge changed. Now, that PV up there with one of the 2024 Spyders, the gold Spyder there, that thing has an auto-latch on it too. Yep. And boy, you talk about rock solid. I love playing that guitar. I find it interesting that there are a lot of people now that they will purposely make their fulcrum bridge dive only because they're looking for the stability. But with this, you can have it float and it's still really stable.
With or without an auto-latch, this was really stable. But then in the engineering, we learned a lot that we learned here. The next in the generation, we came up with the Steeler here.
Right.
And now this was just the standard Steeler. The only difference was now we made the one with the little blocks in it and all that stuff. I don't happen to have one here, but
there's one on that carving right there. I'll insert a picture of it.
All right. Yeah, do that. This one here has, again, a bigger head on this where you can use a bigger Allen wrench.
All right.
And again, it has the feature with a little slot right here. You cut the ball off, stick it in there, and then slam this forward so you can hold it and then screw this in and lock it. By hardening this plate, putting that on a 14 and hardening it, we got much more zing and sound off of it. Then we recently came up with what we call the Godiva block, and you can even move it further. You can do all kinds of gymnastics with this because there's a lot of brass there, and it's cut out on the back side and the front side. Then we went from there to what we referred to as the Pro unit, and this is going to be in heavy production. This is the one that we wanted. But we did learn something from these, and that was we still stick with the arm module because that way we can put an auto-latch on here. See, this one here is already milled for an auto-latch. That's kind of the idea, and it all started with this Spyder. This is the number one fulcrum that we make as far as that Floyd Rose style is concerned. So we learned a lot off of making the Spyder and also making the Killer. We did over 48,000 of these bridges, okay? So recently what I've done is I brought it back to balance inventories, and so we have a limited number of these available. And when they're gone, they're gone. But that's the way I look at it.
Before we comment on the limited availability of that, I would like to take a moment just to say that the Steeler there, in particular the Professional, that bridge is just so advanced. Now it does have that progressive stamping and then Rockwell hardened to a 14-degree radius, but we do have special washers to where you can change it to whatever you want. The spring in the back of that thing, while they're not individual, one thing that I didn't notice until You pointed it out to me one day. There is no stiffener. The spring that Kahler uses is so strong, you don't need a stiffener.
No. Well,
everybody else uses one.
We proceeded to develop the spring rather than put the little spring in each one of these.
Right.
So we believe that this is much more efficient. And one of the thing is that we got so much throw there that actually there's almost a 30% more travel here on the backside. So you can put in the drop deal if you want to do that.
Well, you can't put in the traditional drop things. We got to, because they're metric.
Yeah, well, we're working on something.
We got some R&D going.
We are going to take this piece to the next level.
One last thing about the Steeler. You'd mentioned we still got the arm module.
Yep.
However, on the ones with the big brass blocks, be it either the blunt fatty, which is just our big brass block, that huge thing, or the Godiva, it actually, you put a Floyd Rose turbo arm on there. And something else important is that on those two blocks, our two big brass blocks, the blunt fatty and the Godiva, they are convertible to where when you buy one, it will fit a 32, a 37, or a 42 because you've got the BS, the brass stacker plates.
Yep.
So when you buy one of those, if you've got the Floyd Rose drive, and you get one with one of our big brass blocks, it should just drop right in. There are always going to be outliers, but it should drop right in. The Spyder has actually had a few different incarnations, very small differences, some of them. Most people never even notice. There's a version that you can radius with little screws.
Well, let me explain that. I don't have one here because we did not make that saddle this time. What we found out is that a whole bunch of people would pay for it, but they thought they liked the 14 radius.
Right.
We didn't put them in these because this is 90% of what we sold.
Also, on that one you could radius, there was an intonation screw. I bought just about every intonation tool that you can use, and I don't use any of them anymore. I just use my fingers. I find it way easier. So that's kind of redundant. There was also a single locking one that we'll just mention very briefly that had a couple killer parts on it. That thing is so neat and so rare. Yeah, I'll put a picture in so that people can see. It's really it's a really interesting thing.
But our attention for the purpose of this Kahler cast is to bring it to the Spyder. Frankly, we only have so many of these left.
Right.
So all you folks that have Spyders from the
late 80s
or whatever, and you want a new one and you like it and it's a drop-in, let's keep that in mind because there's only going to be a couple hundred of them, and that's it.
That actually brings me to the next question. I know that there are two differences on these 2024 Spyders, the fine tuners, and then the push blocks don't have the Kahler logo on them anymore. Are there any other differences?
Well, the only reason I have the Kahler logo on it is because I wanted to balance my inventory off.
Right.
And so rather than have the logo on it, that is an injection piece, we actually milled these pieces and out of steel. So these are all milled pieces on the top because we had run out of the Kahler logoed ones.
The fine tuners, something that I'd never really gave any thought to until I put one of these on a guitar. They're not that much bigger, but man, they're a lot more comfortable.
Yeah, they are. Well, they aren't just a flat. They got a little dome on them. And with the little dome, we could make the knurled part a little thicker. So it isn't quite as sharp on your finger when you turn it because the knurled part is bigger. Like on the cam bridges, we got a lot of knurled part.
Right.
Well, here, this has more area, more contact area with your finger.
And as I said before, that PV up there with the 2024 Spyder on it has an auto-latch. I just love the auto-latch. I think it's just one of the coolest things ever.
This is the block, and yeah, we were developing the auto-latch at the same time, but that is the first phased auto-latch, and the one that we'll be introducing here after the first of the year, I would say is a great improvement over that as far as fit, form, and function is concerned. And then we made it also for left and right. So we could use this module right here on that. And if you turn this over, you can see it's already pre-drilled here for a left.
Yeah.
For a lefty. Now, we don't have any lefties in stock at the moment.
Now we're all out, huh?
Yeah, we are.
Well, then there is no at the moment. It's they're gone.
Yeah, I could drill that out, but the problem is that it would ruin you're going to have some flaking because this is already milled.
Right.
And that's just a problem. So they're really right-handed. But if we got a left-hander out there that says, hey, I want a left-hander, and he doesn't mind a little flake around the ID.
Right.
Because we literally got to drill it out from right there straight through. And then you can put this left-handed module on right over here. I guess that's about all I got to say about that.
Yeah, I think that's about it, really. Just a really cool bridge. I've got a couple guitars with them on there. It's another tool in the toolbox. Basically, what the Spyder is, it's nice and stable. Are you going to go completely Steve Vai berserk with it? Probably not. But, just a really, really good, stable bridge.
Now, if you want to go ahead and lift up and break strings and then break your guitar and throw it across stage, I guess you can do that.
Well, that is the Steve Vai way of doing
that's
things.
what I know.
Now, the Godiva on the Steeler,
Yep.
You can easily pull up on that thing high enough to break strings.
Yes, you can.
I do it all the time, and I don't mean to, but it's just so much fun.
You can see that right there. You can see it like that. I can see it in my picture here.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we have a clamp plate that goes over the springs. So the springs aren't going to pop out on you.
No.
On this block. But here again, this is the latest engineering, the latest thing that we do. And we're on top of that. We're going forward with tremolo technology. How about that?
Honestly, too, that professional. I mean, I love the traditional. The traditional's great. Don't get me wrong. I think it's fantastic. But I was really concerned. The professional looks so different. I was really wondering, how's this thing going to behave? And I like them to be very light, and I like to be able to just give a little, like breathe on the thing, and it'll flutter into next week. And the professional does that better than any other bridge I know.
Anyway, we got the Spyders available in bright chrome, black chrome, and gold.
Yeah, you know what? I think that pretty well covers the Spyder.
I think it does. Yes, it does.
All right, great. Well, you know what, you guys, until next time, I've been Eddie Kernan.
And I'm Gary Kahler. And hey, thank you for watching and listening, and send your orders our way. We'd appreciate it.
See you next week.